Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm joined by Shea and Adriana, and today we're going to be talking about Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks feature film debut. And just like a Chris Stuckman review, I want to review it in about 5 minutes. I'm going to talk about how great it is, even if I didn't really like it. And we have a 2.5 minute sponsor by Factor. Factor Meals Today, or Raycon. Raycon, premium ear quality. Just kidding. I'm a big hater. Let's talk about Shelby Oaks.
Once
We can
again,
cut that.
natural and organic.
That's the
as
bit that you
always.
rehearsed.
Yeah. No, because you know what this is though is I honestly have loved and followed Chris Stuckman for like 15 years. I think Shea's in the same boat. Like we follow the guy forever, and I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago in the renaissance of Shea and Brandon's friendship here, where we realized we both loved and followed Chris Stuckman, and that was like really sweet and endearing. But around that same time, I was like, dude, I don't know what it is, but I don't trust his reviews anymore. He'll say a movie is like great for all these specific things. I'll go in with an adjusted mindset or expectations. And I'll still be like, oh, damn, he really could have said a little bit more about like the pacing or something. But then in a 5 minute review, which is perfect for me, I'll put on like an 8 minute review when I take a shower and I can get the whole thing in top to bottom. And then as soon as I hop in the shower, yeah, so here we are talking about long legs, but first, a sponsor message from Factor. Factor is premium, and it's like that's half the fucking review. And then we get into the review, and it's like, wow, just good stuff, guys. Really inspiring filmmaking. Thanks for tuning in. And so, I've been really going down the rabbit hole of like what's happened to Chris Stuckman, because he used to be somebody else, and to be fair, I've been there for all of his stuff. I've been there for his, Jehovah's Witness coming out. And like, I actually really like the guy personally as a YouTuber. I really think he's awesome in that sense. And I have a lot of like reverence for him as like the nostalgia from growing up with him as like the YouTube review guy. To see his passion for film has always been really endearing to me, but it's been heartbreaking watching his channel and his reviews kind of decline as he's become a filmmaker. So finally seeing his movie, the reason why he's become more toothless on the reviews and being a little bit more like filmmaker first, which is sweet, don't get me wrong. But as you can tell, I think sometimes a cynical review is a better review. And yeah, it kind of hurts. So seeing his feature finally, I'm let down. I did not live up to any expectations. And I went in adjusted because I saw Shea's review for its initial screening last year. And there's a lot of pros in this movie. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be me flogging it the whole time, but on like a grand non-spoiler free level, the pacing was pretty brutal. I felt like it was over 2 hours and it was under 2 hours. It could have been 15 minutes shorter. I know they say that a lot, but this one, like a minute, a scene could have been deleted. The whole movie was the main actress's face going and just being petrified. Like I took like 9 screen grabs from the trailer to be like this
You can
pace.
only get away with that if you're Tony Collette, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and to be fair, the acting in this I think was pretty decent. I think as a director, Chris has some chops for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of like nitpicks that I'll get into, but for the most part, yeah, I felt the love in the project, and I can see why he put so much effort into it, and I could see a lot of the effort coming through. But I think from like maybe this is an experience thing. If he has future works, I really hope he tightens it up because by the end of it, I sighed. I audibly sighed, almost uncontrollably, just being like, that's why I've fallen out of love with his YouTube channel a little bit. So, anyways, I think that was my big off the cuff rip, and I hope I'm not so negative on the guy because I do like him, but I will tear into the movie a little bit more. But yeah, spoiler free. Adriana hasn't seen this, but Shea, do you want to
Yeah.
kind of?
I'll just quickly this is interesting to me as someone who has never seen a single Chris Stuckman video, and like to the point where when Shea was like, I gotta go see this last year at
Yeah,
Fantasia, I was like, who? Like what? Why?
yeah, you're
um
unstuckmanized. You're not
yeah.
stuckmanized with Shea and I.
But I'm here to listen and learn from both of you. I'm very curious, but yeah.
It's good to have a
Sure.
neutral person on this too, because I do feel like Shay and I are a lot closer to the creator and to maybe the legacy of it. But yeah, it'd be interesting as somebody who hasn't seen it, if you would be interested in seeing it after what Shay at least has to say, because I know I probably will undersell it a little bit. But yeah, what are your spoiler-free thoughts there, buddy?
Well, I'm gonna say she probably won't be interested, at least by the conversation that we're going to have for it. I think Well, yeah, so I actually saw the world premiere screening. It was the first ever screening for the movie was at Fantasia, not this year, but in 2024. And it was a different cut of the movie. I made a note of things that, at least as far as like I could remember, me and Kelsey talked about it because we saw it together at the premiere too. So trying to make some notes of differences. And I disagree with some of the things, particularly on the pacing. There's a particular part we'll get to where the original cut, I believe, was longer. There was certain parts that I know were missing from this movie, and I actually feel like the changes really made, not that it felt like enormously fast or anything, but it did feel like there was a chunk of this movie that was just missing. And we'll get into that in the spoiler part because it touches on those specific parts. But overall, I don't share Brandon's animosity. I think is a fair word to come in. There's a little bit of like underwriting issues with like how Chris has evolved his channel. For me, I was like he was my gateway really into movies. Like I firmly believe without kind of watching his channel and discovering movies through him, who had access to more movies than I did in Owen Sound and was really influencing things I would buy like on Blu-rays and try to make sure I would watch. Like he was incredibly formative, and for me it was just a taste thing. He like how he felt about a movie generally was how I would feel about a movie that I had seen. So it was really a gateway for me to kind of get into movies and the level that I did. And like he had written a book years ago of like 50 films from the 2000s or whatever that you need to see, and little mini reviews on that I had bought years ago. And so like I was excited. I thought it was a cool thing to see like someone taking this path from critic to filmmaker. And again, I think this like there's been an obvious, and I feel like not to get bogged down in the weeds on this, but I think he like acknowledged that the channel was changing. Like that, he's not really having made a movie now himself. He's not really interested in bagging on movies and things like that. And to me that immediately not invalidates you as a critic, but it now the channel isn't doing the same thing it was doing. It's a completely different thing. I don't think he'd be dishonest enough to talk about a movie that he didn't like necessarily, but he's only talking about movies he can be positive enough about. Maybe he's not being as pointed in his criticism. I think all of that's fair. But where I didn't have animosity towards that was that he made a step here that I would never make. I would never write and direct my own film. I would never feel confident enough to do that. I don't have an ambition to do that. I just like kind of love movies. I love watching movies. I don't necessarily love creating them. But for me, I think the movie, I saw it in the world premiere. We've now all three of us have experienced a Fantasia crowd. That is the best way to see a movie. And I remember my review at the time was that I kind of liked it. So I do think that this time around, without that Fantasia crowd, with all the hype kind of dialed down and me still having a sense of how I felt about that movie, my review did go down. It went from, I think I gave it a like rating, down to more of a mid. I'm still kind of mixed on the movie overall. Um, and that, even to be honest, is probably partly softened. Like this is a mid to dislike. This is not a movie that I would review or want to necessarily see again. There's aspects of it that I really like, but there's a lot of it that doesn't work. And I can't deny that I'm part of it is like, well, this is a first time director making a first feature and trying to at least look through it that lens. If this was someone more seasoned or experienced, this would have been a very firm dislike from me. But like I do think there is optimistic parts, like there is things to appreciate here, and I do think that he deserves a crack at something else. And my biggest takeaway from when we reviewed it more than a year ago now, and I don't feel any different, is script writing. The script is easily the worst part of this movie.
I would
There
agree with that
are
for sure.
logic gaps, there's things that don't make sense, there's changes they've made in the edit, things that I know were in there that are not in there, that at least explain some things, if not very well, that they removed. So there's that, to me, is the single biggest issue. And which surprised me, because I had heard, as a fan of the channel, maybe like you, Brandon, you would have remembered, like, he did constantly talk about, like, oh, he always writes little scripts and has ideas for scripts and all this stuff. So going in, I expected a tighter script and less good direction, and it was the total opposite.
Total
I thought he
opposite.
was a
I agree.
much better director than a script writer here. And so I do think there was enough good here that I would be curious to see him make another horror movie with a different script, with someone else writing and things like that. But on a base level, I really can't recommend the movie. If you're curious as a fan, even, I think you're like, it's worth supporting. Like, I like, that's my thing, is always take a chance on a movie you're curious about, because even movies that you don't necessarily like doesn't mean they're not worthy of that attempt. So maybe you'll like it more than we will. Some movies I will, like, be more adamant that, like, this is clearly love. It's not that he doesn't, anything else, like, it's effort put in. And I think, like I said, there's enough nuggets here that there's something to appreciate. But just as a package, it's something I can't say I would ever be too excited to revisit.
I would say on that note too, like I'm usually the one that does say wait for streaming on things. Like I'm usually the guy that's like, this is passable for streaming, which is a review Shea hates. However, I would say even with my, as Shea put it, animosity towards Chris Stuckman, which I wouldn't fully agree with, but I'll get into is, I would say if you're a fan of Chris Stuckman and you've been following him like Shea and I for like 15 years and you like his story and his personal development and you want to see what he's been cooking, or in my case, like what's been changing his channel, this big project, definitely see it in the theaters. Pay the money. I want to make sure Chris Stuckman has another chance of making a movie. I think you said it. I was agreeing with it, and I know Jeremy Johns even said it in his review that came out today. Was like, I think Chris should be directing someone else's script, because the story definitely had, like you said, logic gaps and kind of moments where, I think in Jeremy Johns' review he said like there are just some choices these characters make that seem a little like logically you wouldn't. So totally agree. And I would also hop in on when you said the whole just because he did the transition, he got himself out there and he made the movie. It's kudos because we would never kind of thing. But I would say, like, personally, as somebody who like Chris,
I would never. I don't want to speak for you. I would
yeah.
never.
Well, I think that's our difference here is like Chris, you and I grew up in a small rural town, and you were in a lot of my little high school videos, and we went out with a couple buddies and shot our short films in the woods, and we did a lot of very similar things. That's why I think I endeared so much to him as a YouTuber, a creative voice, because it's just like that is the small town movie nerd dream. Like he really has done it, and that's why I feel so bad that I couldn't get behind this movie as much as I wish, and that's why I feel like I have to be a little bit more negative on it, because I do create. I hate creating. It's the worst. It's ruined my life, it felt like, in a lot of ways. But so I do get that. And a part of me even kind of left selfishly, and like, what do you call it? Jealousy wise, like my envy was like, we got to get our channel to millions of subscribers so I can get a record Kickstarter break. And so then Mike Flanagan can choose me. Cause there's a lot to it that I think there's a layer of envy in my comments I'll be making today, where I definitely think, I'm glad he has, but like compared to, like, say, Raka Raka, very YouTube creator space, but they were creating actual like shorts and little vignettes and action set pieces, and then they got to make a movie, and their first one was like, talk to me, I would say, for a first feature compared to this, blows it out of the water. And then their follow-up, again, I liked it a lot this year. Obviously not perfect films, but when we talk about the YouTube creator going to the next step and becoming Hollywood and getting all the backings, this did let me down. So yeah, with that being full transparency, being a jealous hater, I definitely will have a lot to say. So, yeah, I guess to get
Yeah, but
into it,
animosity was too overstated on my part
animosity
to
was much. I
describe
would
Brandon's
say,
feelings.
yeah, I'm just a little jealous, and I just wanted more because I did love the guy's story where he's been, because it reflects us so well as like people who are trying to create on a platform, people who are you know, love movies and came from a small town, and you know, he's always a big guy when it comes to talking about like putting Ohio more on the map and doing that. And I do like how this movie is in his hometown, or not his hometown, but his, you know, home state and
Yeah.
his setting. You know, it's right what you know. But however, like again, we'll get into the script. I don't think was as good as it could have been. So I think now is a safe time. Now that we've fluffed up and deflated as much as we possibly can, I think we should probably get into the spoilers. And spoiler wise, I'm trying to think of like the first thing I want to say that would hurt it narratively, but they do like a very Blair Witch found footage angle, and it was the first 15 minutes of the movie. I had to check because it did feel like half an hour to me. Like again, the timing and
That's
pacing for
that
me was
okay,
not
see,
great.
that's crazy because easily the beginning, both times I've seen this,
The beginning's really
that
good.
opening part
It's
is the
really good.
best part without
Yeah,
question, I felt like,
I think my
because they
big thing
do shoot it differently there.
my big thing is, yeah, when because the opening I was kind of like, oh, this is so like a YouTuber doing like a Blair Witch. Oh, cool, like I'm buying in. And then as soon as it switches into what I call like a real movie, like the cinematography is so good, better than I was anticipating. They do like a faux mockumentary thing. Like I know he's talked about Lake Mungo being a big part of his like influences,
Mhm.
but yeah, when it flips into like the Mike Flanagan produced look of the
Yeah.
movie, I was like, damn. Like, and it does have a Mike Flanagan credit going into the ambulance after the guy shoots himself. And it is like, wow, what a really, really solid like catch, you know, really into that. The way the tape shows up and it's got the Shelby Oaks name, like there was so much great stuff. And I'd say the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie, I was buying in really well, being like, fine, like, yes, this is my boy Chris here is in his lane doing his thing. This is great. But then pacing wise, like I said, it was like time was dilating for me. It was starting to stretch out where there's so many scenes, and they almost immediately go right back to looking at found footage on a television, which for me, I was kind of like, oh, okay, we're in the real part of the movie now, not the opening mockumentary found footage backstory. And then now that we're in the real movie, we're back to the TV, and there are some really good scares in there for sure. But yeah, it was like found footage cut back to the actor going, really afraid, and then as the movie kind of went on, it was just kind of the same character researching, what almost felt like endlessly researching and looking and staring at things and shining lights on things and flipping through books. And I feel like some of that could have been cut down. I am excited for you to tell me a little bit about what was fully missing, because I said to my girlfriend immediately, like they could have cut out at least one or two researching scenes, because they just felt like it was like, how many times can we see a character look at a screen or flip through a book or hold a flashlight and slowly look around a room? You know what I mean? Like it was, I almost wish there was a character to deliver some of these things, because it did feel like it was our protagonist just being like an independent researcher, spooking herself scene after scene for that middle chunk of the movie. Um, but also, sorry, I would say I don't want to underserve my enjoyment of this movie. I think again, cinematography top tier, the pacing, a lot of the shots, even though if they did drag a bit, really good. And I think the creature design and the paranormal elements, I got behind. And the finale of the movie, I would say, had really, really good. Like the set that they built, they must have built a set the way they had that dungeon and the tunnel, and like the scale of this movie kept surprising me when I was like going, I mean, like low budget YouTuber movie. Um, you know, I didn't expect them to have something so like professional looking, especially by the end of it, after I was kind of lulled into a state of like, where's this going? Like, I hope they don't cop out. So what are your what are your
Well,
things?
so on the visuals, like, yeah, that opening bit where it starts off kind of like, yeah, like as a documentary setup, like they straight up are like interviewing the main character, right? Like of the movie, and it's her sister, the missing girl, and they're talking to her. And that stuff I all thought was a really interesting way to do it, and I was really enjoying that style. And then, yeah, from the moment the dude that ended up kidnapping the sister kills himself on the porch, then the movie becomes more of a normal, just now where it's kind of the camera isn't actually there, feeling. And I was actually mixed on the cinematography most often. Like all of the bits, like all of the like segments where there was like extended scare moments and set pieces. I thought the cinematography was phenomenal. Again, blew it out of the water as far as what I would have expected. But I did notice, and I feel like I kind of remember this from before, but I really noticed it this time. The normal shots I felt very sloppy. Like just the shots, reverse shots of characters talking, they just often felt like, I don't know, they looked weird to me. They just felt a little off and amateurish, which is weird given that the actual set pieces always constantly felt really good. But it's like that's more of a minor gripe. I think for me, and again, like I have to clarify again too, that this is partially covered because I saw a different cut of the movie. So I like, to me, this felt much like I thought there was way less investigation because I'm pretty sure there was way less investigation in this cut. And so the problem that I had, and like the biggest thing that maybe you'll notice in this movie too, without noticing that it was cut, was that the relationship with her husband is like gutted in this movie. Like there was a lot of relationship scenes and kind of not explaining away like why she's doing this all by herself, but they have that initial tension where he wanted a family, and then after her sister goes missing, she's just not interested in having a family. So the movie tells us that still in this cut of the movie, but they really kind of fight about that more often, and she tries to get him to help more often, but he constantly, says no and whatever, and leaves her alone.
Yeah, the
But
husband I definitely felt was pretty weak, and it
you could have
almost was kind
omitted
of
him.
like
You could have
could
omitted
have
him.
in this cut could have omitted him. There was a line in the start in the mockumentary where she's like, "Yeah, we did want to have a kid, but it was a lot of strain with my sister missing." And then it's just like Mike refused to interview, and I was kind of like, "Oh, that felt like a throwaway line." And later, obviously, it makes a lot more sense. But watching the whole movie through, that's probably my big takeaway. Because even Renata at the end was like, "Oh, her husband came back." I'm like, "No, no, he was always there. They just their relationship was strained, so he didn't give a fuck when she was trying to like find her missing sister," which also feels like I don't know. Her husband stuff definitely made me think like,
From
why
an
have him?
from
Yeah.
an outside perspective, that just sounds like lazy, like a kind of cop out way to write
Also,
something. But
another character on that note, I don't know if they had more presence in the other one. And again, I feel like there's some decent actors in this. Like it wasn't just a bunch of unknowns. But the police chief guy, I feel like could have been
He was
used
cut a
better.
lot of this movie. He was
Oh,
cut out
okay,
a lot.
because
There was
when they
like
make
twice as much stuff, I think, maybe
yeah, when they
than
make
originally
the
thought.
choice, which again we talk about logic gaps, when they make the choice to not share the tape with the police, that felt a little bit like horror movie thinking.
Yeah.
Adriana said it in one of when we saw Positions at Fantasia, where she's like, "It's so hard to watch characters." I've said this, I've referenced Adriana a few times now with this exact quote. It's so hard to watch characters make bad choices for themselves time and time again. In that one movie, that was like a guy who was like not well and kind of
Uncut
addicted to his
Gems
thing.
energies.
Yes, which we'll definitely be bringing that up eventually. But the as far as like in this movie, it was kind of like just constantly like yeah, I guess I'll go to the spooky abandoned jail in the middle of the night. And one of my buddies said it's like, why did she go in the middle of the night? Like, I know time was of the essence, but not really. Like, she'd been missing so long at that point. Like, again, spoilers, she had 3 or 4 children. So it's been many years had passed since her abduction or missing. So, yeah, kind of like
It was
horror
12
movie
years.
character wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's like horror movie character wise. Why did she go in the middle of the night? Could she not wait until the next day? Could she not have brought a friend, called her husband? Again, when they're in the movie, you wonder where they go. So logically, it's like does not give the police the evidence of her sister potentially being alive. Does not really communicate well where she's going or bring her husband or have any. But like nobody checks in with her. She's kind of a lone wolf, but it's not really established super well to me. Like I really felt like again, where's her husband was one of the things I kept thinking. But yeah, the police chief again, I feel like he cared a lot about finding her sister. And if he showed up in the finale or somewhere along the way to be like, you've done more for this case than all the people in the force who've come up dry or whatever. Just something to like put him in a room with her trying to figure this out. But yeah, again, obviously budgets are a huge thing and paying every actor to be in every scene, but The
Well, it
movie is
wasn't
just
even
our
that, man. They had more of him. Like there was a scene for sure I remember of her like turning over the tape eventually and him like, what the hell, you keep withholding evidence and like the whole kind of energy. So he
yeah.
definitely was more there. Keith David, for example, I know is like the warden of the prison. That was the only Keith David scene, but I remember, so I don't think I mentioned it in this yet, but I was a Kickstarter backer, so I did get the updates as they were producing. And when they hit a stretch goal, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get a notable name actor," and it was
Yeah.
Keith David for that role, which I thought was really kind of just a fun, neat little thing to see. But
On that note,
um,
super quick, the Keith David of it all, his scene again, his acting is Keith David. He's pretty good. But when he's like the one prisoner who was the most evil of all the prisoners, I was like, they're really trying to speed run like this like origin story or this guy is like the big bad. Cause yeah, I did have like a bit of this issue of just kind of like, oh, it's really convenient that a lot of this line is lining up and that the guy from the prison from many years ago is like immediately dialed in to be like, yeah, it must be this guy because he was the worst guy in the prison. Like again, I almost felt like that was an unnecessary scene if they just said like only one inmate in some sort of like tragic fire or riot was found in his cell, and like that could have been a blurb on a. I'm glad they did actual, somebody telling you something as opposed to just reading more, but at the same time, I was like, oh, it did seem a little tagged on, even if it was a good scene and a good actor. I was like, yeah, it felt really oddly convenient that she came and sat down and he's like, let me tell you about the one really crooked guy that was ultra weird in a prison full of the worst people known to man. And I don't know. Again, like story wise, like some of the writing was definitely like on the
yeah.
nose. So not to go on, but yeah, that was the Keith David thing. The only thing I had to say was great actor, decent scene, but could that scene have been deleted for sure? Definitely. Like you could have just
I have
passed
a
right by it.
question. How
Mhm.
long was the original cut versus this new one? Because like it
I
sounds like
don't
a lot
remember.
was cut out from what you're saying.
The new
There
one's
was
142, 1 hour 42 minutes.
I think
It
we
felt like
were,
two
yeah, and
hours
we
to
were
me.
definitely closer to 2 hours the first time. I
Okay.
don't remember definitively how long it was, and I tried to find it, but those old Fantasia pages are closed down. So, but like I didn't remember really feeling the pacing before. I don't think I mentioned it in my review. And like to me, this again, there's like, so the biggest gap that I noticed this time around was, so yeah, she basically gets this information about the prison and she finds in this tape that there was a particular cell, which is why I think like you could have done it in a different way, but I preferred the Keith David scene to give us the exposition needed for her to make that decision to get there. I think that's one of the ones you more need to have than you could have maybe looked for other ways to trim around the investigation part. But basically, when she gets all the information she needs to know that I need to go to prison cell 37 in this prison, she gets there and there is something. She immediately goes in, she gets spooked, scary things happen, which by the way was also tweaked. I don't remember that demon hand and the dog. I don't, maybe the dog was there, but definitely not the demon thing showing up like that. Like that was all kind of zhuzhed up, and the effects work definitely got touched up after Neon acquired the movie, because I remember saying the dogs looked like shit every time they were on. Like it was one of my biggest problems is that they have just normal dogs, but they're like German shepherds, but they were digital, you could tell, or they digitaled them up. And I hated it. But there was something missing between that prison scene and then she immediately goes to Shelby Oaks, the abandoned town. There was chunk of the movie missing. Like
Was
she
was
didn't
it the
just go from
amusement
there to
park or
there.
what? Because she enters the amusement park and walks to the prison, if I
No, no,
remember
no, no. Like
correctly.
she goes back home, and this is what kind of baffled me watching it the second time is like I don't even remember necessarily what it was. I do think I have an idea what it was, but she just goes from the creepy prison, gets jump scared, and then immediately runs to Shelby Oaks, like the town, and starts looking around there. But there was like a middle chunk that was just completely removed that connected more of why she was going from there to there. And so like I thought that kind of was a thing that made no sense to me, as other than to trim it up, speed it up, because it was just more like you were complaining about investigation. Like she figured out oh, okay, well, now I need to go back to the town for some reason.
Just
Um,
while we're on it, talking about the prison scene, you talked about some of the sloppiness of like the
Same
conversation
prison as
scenes.
Shawshank Redemption, by the way.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Which again, like, I'm really glad Chris got that opportunity. But I was going to ask you this too. When she's in that prison cell, I've worked on a few prison movies and TV shows, Mayor of Kingstown, and there's a new one coming out called I Will Find You. I've set dressed a lot of prison cells. They're not that big, obviously, prison cells, but when she's in that room, I did feel like there was a lot of either her or the camera teleporting around because it's like it's a small room, it's a closet basically, and it felt like she would look at one direction at the wall, and then we would cut to a almost like a bad edit where now she's further back in the cell looking at a different wall, and again it's a lot of that slow kind of panning looking over at different things, and it felt like that room specifically, and again it was like an ethereal tormenting thing happening in that room, but visually that was the only scene where I was like I'm a little confused by the blocking of that scene where I felt like, something would have changed or the walls would have actually physically moved around to reveal different sections of the walls. Like when you're shooting a prison cell closet, basically, uh, it felt like things were just shifting around or she was shifting around or stuff that you would have immediately clocked when you walked in, like the sigil on the wall or
Hmm.
any of the evidence you would have seen. And I almost really wish it was like, again, not a good horror movie thing, but establish it a little better with a wide shot to show the geography. Cause it was like medium close up on the lead actress being concerned, close up on a wall, medium close up with the actor slightly in a different spot in the room with she hasn't moved. And that's a nitpick, but like, yeah, there was one of those moments where I was feeling a little disjointed. And when the movie is so many medium close up shots of our lead actress reacting to horrifying news, or horrifying events, that was a scene, especially closer to the end of the movie, in the middle stretch where I felt a little bloated. I was kind of like, okay, I get it. She's shocked and horrified. Like,
Yeah.
and again, the jump scare in that prison too. I did like it was effective. It was definitely a jump scare, and I know Chris Stuckman's kind of talked out about jump scares being sometimes too cheap and they need to be really well earned. And there's a few in this one that I felt well earned, and then there's a few like that one that I felt was maybe a
Yeah.
little bit hammed up,
Well, that one I
uh,
think was completely tacked on. Like, I don't
tacked on.
remember
Okay,
that ending that way before.
it helps punch
Again,
things
like,
up.
not rock
Yeah, like
solid memory,
we
but,
talked
like,
about
it
Black
was
Phone.
a tense scene, but that moment, I don't remember it ending that particular way and that jumpy. It was
Yeah,
more the
well, and
dread and tension that was
And while
really
we're on it, because you
permeating.
did talk about the dogs, I was gonna say this is a really big year for glowing eyes. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like that effect where eyelids kind of flicker back like a cat's eye almost. Like if you think we saw that in Sinners a lot, like that was the effect. And I feel like I've seen several other movies this year where the eyes reflect like a dog or an animal. And this movie, obviously,
Frankenstein, which we'll get to
Frankenstein, that
later.
which we'll get to exactly, and that was the thing. And in that movie, it was just his one. So I feel like I've seen that effect a few times this year, and I love it. Like visually, it tells you immediately what you need to know, and it's creepy, it's horrifying. But I feel like that's a trend, and obviously, not everyone was like Chris Stuckman didn't see an advanced screener of Sinners so early that he put it in his movie, nor did he see Frankenstein, I'm sure, but. A lot of reflective eyes this year. I think it was a really cool effect. But the dogs themselves, they felt a little odd to me, like just in general. Like we
Yeah.
have this like, is it actually a supernatural vibe? Like, because that's the thing. It's the whole thing of the movie. Uh, was she actually psychic? Were paranormal things really happening? Now it's a missing person case. And I feel like the dogs being so like immediately kind of exposed as being this ethereal paranormal thing. I wasn't sure how that landed with you because for me, I felt like the dogs was the one thing I didn't know if I needed. I do like the creature of like the pagan deity thing.
Mhm.
I almost wish there was maybe more of that and less of the dogs. Like I did think like the supernatural lore when it is kind of revealed all at the end and paced out throughout it did feel a little bit surface level, and the dogs are like an easy way to have like a secondary evil spirit to haunt her or like clue her into things. Why does the one dog lead her to the cabin in the woods if the dogs are also supposed to be a part of the antagonists?
Well, logically speaking, that makes sense because that evidently was part of their plan,
They
right? Was
wanted
to
her
get
to
the
find the
sister
baby and
there
to,
and all of
yeah,
that,
yeah, you're
yes.
right, you're right.
So
But
that
yeah,
was at least logically explained, but, like, it's one of the few parts of that that makes any sense. too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because my biggest gripe, and this is what kind of kills me both, which I think this is going to be amusing for Adriana to hear as someone that hasn't seen the movie, is that it's like the whole thing is these kids, the paranormal paranoids, go missing in this abandoned town. It's an abandoned small town. Okay. She gets there, and there is a house with electricity, with lights,
The
that
only house in
only
town,
one creepy
apparently.
old lady is living in, who also happens to be the mother of this prison inmate that we mentioned earlier, that was like this creepy evil dude.
Which was not a
And
shocking reveal.
he
It was pretty
also
obvious.
lived there. And she just like, it's a house. It's one of the houses in this abandoned town. And hey, guess what? That's where her sister was.
Where she's
Whoa,
been
And
for
it's
no.
12
like,
years or whatever.
and it's not like they have an underground part of the house or whatever, but like I'm like, how the fuck does this, like, this is an abandoned town? It's not an abandoned town. Someone's living in it. They still have electricity. Like, it was like, and they just happened across it. It wasn't like it was hidden deep in the woods, and it was not like a real house or something. It was just like a hastily put together, like, no, it's a house. So like, it was mind numbing to me that I'm like, how the fuck, like, what do you mean? Like, she went missing in this town, and there's the one person that's still in the town, and that's also where she happens to be. I was like, it's such a stupid moment, frankly, that it
To be
really
fair.
overshadows the rest of like anything else that goes on. But I know
Well,
you have some to add to that, so go
yeah,
ahead
well,
before I go
while we're
further.
on the house and we're in the finale of the movie, like, again, like I think a lot of this looked great, and I feel like that must have been a real set, the way they put all that work into like the tunnel and all that,
Yeah.
and they, again, kudos. But yeah, I think that old lady, when she showed up, I was like, ooh, finally, like stuff's happening, like this, because it felt like there was a lot of investigating and like her alone being scared in the woods, and when she gets the old lady and that starts kind of amping things up, like we're now in the finale. As soon as they show one shot of that living room with that massive area rug, I'm like, that is either a trap with a bunch of spikes under it, or that's where her sister is. I think I even leaned to Renata. I said, I'm like, that rug is so fucking fake. Like that's like when we saw One Battle After Another, and there's the rug that goes over the trap door, and that was
Yeah.
like a cute little bit. I was like, that is the glaring like set dresser mindset of mine. I'm like, that is a rug with no coffee table on it or anything around it, and then no one's really walking on it. I'm like, that is a booby trap, or that is a dungeon under that rug. Um,
And it
and again,
was.
and it was, and again, like I think visually that there was a lot of great moments where she goes into the like cellar under the house, like through that little trap door, and she's like, come on, what are you waiting for? And like she walks away. I was like, ooh, like this is good. Like he's cooking. Chris is cooking with some of these scenes now. I'm really into it. She brings the knife from the kitchen. She finds her sister. She gets her to come out of the cage or whatever. Sets the knife down. Does not bring it with her. And I think everybody in my theater, all like 20 people. I went on a Saturday matinee. I should point out I haven't seen a matinee in that forever because I haven't had a free day of my life forever. So I went in just very chilled out, middle of the day. Perfect theater experience as far as like people were normal. Nobody's on their phone. Nobody was annoying. And again, I went in with the best mindset possible. But yeah, I think at this point in the movie, after kind of all the buildup, and I think the whole audience is feeling this like, let's get to the lore, let's get to the conclusion kind of feeling. When they show her forget the knife, at least two people went, oh, come on. Like
Yeah. They
you
very
left the knife.
clearly show her set it down. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
shot of just her like dropping it.
Especially when she
Yeah.
had it like in her coat or her purse or something, like you put
Yeah.
it back, like holster your weapon because you're going to need that. And she definitely needed it. Like, so she sets down the knife, she brings her sister. And I guess like, I know it's like, oh, if I was being held captive and going through this traumatizing thing, I would totally be armed and ready. But yeah, she was not in a safe space whatsoever. And she's left the knife. They're leaving, and then there's a great little shot where it shows the old lady now with like the giant pagan demon thing behind her, and I was like, oh, like I bet you wish you had the knife now, don't you? Like, and then they run to the door, and then her sister does the horror movie thing, like, oh, I can't. She runs upstairs. That's when I find out she has a baby, hinted at with that line of like, well, do you want one? Talking about, do you still want to have kids? And she's like, well, my husband and I are strained, as we've alluded to once earlier in this movie. And then they're upstairs, and again, I'm like, bet you wish you had the knife. You know, it wouldn't have done anything. She also has the force with her pagan powers to stop her from stopping her ceremony, her weird bloodletting ceremony. But again, earlier in that scene when they're standing in the rug room, I called it, she finds the one photo album, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, here's what we've been missing. Here's her having like some pagan wedding, being 8-9 months pregnant. Then, you know, her husband, like what looks like killing an infant in a grave, and the grave markers were the sigil that were outside that we saw. And it's like, again, I think that's a decent reveal. But then when we're upstairs, those same photos, I guess double prints, are all over the wall, and we get the same close-up showing it again. And again, that's one of my things where I was like, we did so much research and look at close-ups on newspapers and stuff like that, that I was kind of like, oh, we're getting it double explained through the same method that I was finding a little grating. Finale happens, pretty creepy, pretty spooky. She saves her sister. And then the mockumentary kind of concludes and picks up with her, you know, bookends it, start in front, only for her sister to kind of go crazy and go to snuff the baby's life out and follow
Well, you're
the
kind of
window.
jumping, yeah, for Adriana who may not, or anyone listening who may not have watched it. The big gap there is that they do some ritual with the baby, and that like she cuts blood and covers the baby in blood and the demon thing. And this is my big problem. Like you talked about a pacing issue in the sense that you said it felt too long. I had a pacing issue to me where it was like it just feels very sloppy. Like it just like as we go through, like this climactic ending falls completely flat and is wildly weird. It never feels normal. It just feels artificially inorganic and amateurish. Like really, that's the only way I can kind of explain it. And not just in like, I don't mean necessarily in the way that it's shot. A lot of it, those parts are competently done. It's just, I think, again, on the script level, it's like for a guy, like I understand filmmakers that like have varying degrees of, I don't watch a lot of other movies. I just like what I like and whatever, like they're not necessarily students of the game. But the thing for Stuckman is that he watched a shitload of movies all the time. He was a movie critic. And for his movie to commit on a script level that he wrote, like on a script level, commit so many of these kind of horror movie sins that exist is what I find to be kind of, again, the biggest weak point and the most jarring is that this whole sequence ends. They find the sister, and within, like, I want to say 5 minutes of finding the sister, the ritual is done. The old lady has killed herself during this ritual, and then they go home and that's it. And you're like, well, what the fuck? And they do show, like, when they put the sister in the hospital bed, that she's looking like evilly at the baby. So you're like, okay, they put the devil in the baby or whatever the fuck, right? Like, you know, that's the setup. Then they do the mockumentary part where they end the documentary effectively, and our family's moving on and we're onwards and upwards and whatever.
And nobody
Then it
believes
cuts
it.
to normal. Right, and it just feels very pace-wise. You're like, what the fuck? Like,
It sounds
you know
almost
it's not done.
like him having watched a ton of movies, almost like it's like part of the problem here. Because just from,
Yes.
I can't speak with any authority here, of course, because I
Yeah.
haven't seen this movie. But just from what you guys are saying, it sounds like he was trying to cram like many different movies or elements of different horror movies into one. Like you mentioned, it starts off as like almost like a Blair Witch type thing, and this is like sounds very reminiscent
Lake
of,
Mungo, like,
yeah, or like
yeah.
there's I don't know.
Rosemary's Baby, a little
It
bit.
really is. And this is why I think, like, it's not that the ideas that are in here are inherently incorrect either. It's just that the execution of them is so bad. And that's why it's like, it's not that he doesn't have good ideas. I think, like, the intrigue at the start is definitely there. In a similar vein, I think that I think we all felt for Weapons, of like the question, the mystery is far more interesting than the reveal. This is a far more dramatically stark example of that problem, where it's like the mystery is somewhat interesting and whatever, but it becomes almost immediately explained away. And then when they do the ultimate reveal, it's just so flat. And then I will say, so the ending happens where she sees the sister trying to smother her baby, and then they tussle, they fall out the window, or the sister falls out the window. And if I remember correctly, like I'm not locking this in 100%. I think the movie framed it that she died there, like by the fall. I don't distinctly remember the dogs coming in and ripping her apart. I feel like that was added, but I
Added,
don't
yeah.
don't quote me to that. And I think that makes sense because if the dogs looked like shit throughout the movie, having them show up at the end to rip the sister apart maybe didn't happen. I don't, again, not, I'm not putting my like that absolutely didn't happen, but I don't remember it happening that way. And the demon thing showing up, and then basically like they do a voiceover again to be like, yeah, it was like she was possessed, it was like he was possessed, and then we see her eyes become gray, and then she screams and the movie's over. So on that side it becomes kind of this weird bit of like, and then it just ends, and it just
Yeah.
like literally from, and that's why basically from this prison scene to the end it just feels like a total mess. That there is just like, I remember the ending feeling pretty unsatisfying throughout there, but leading up to that, like I was like, this whole thing is a huge mess, and it really like lacks that structure, and it doesn't feel really ever, it never feels more interesting than it does like in that first 20-ish minutes of the mockumentary setup and all of that. Like it just never gets to a point that it really becomes all that compelling. And I think, like I said, like, again, we have to remember, like, we're like, yes, it was distributed by Neon. They got a little bit more money, but it was acquired. But like, this was a straight up guerrilla movie. Like, this was crowdfunded. That was where the money came from. Like if you contextualize it, I think like if you were take even Stuckman out of it and just be like, this was a Kickstarter film that was self-funded and whatever else, and even like again you can tack on the things afterwards from a first-time director and writer who just did that likely for, you know, financial and expediency reasons as well too. Like it's not the worst movie I've ever seen by any measure, but it just does not work as a movie. And through this conversation, I know, Brandon, you always point out, and I think you brought this up as a point of insecurity in yourself when you said we've had conversations that you've then gone back and lowered your score afterwards. I will say I will drop my score from a mid to a dislike on this. I there's just not enough there. There is
Shayflation.
stuff there. Yeah, I did, but I can't say I liked the movie or that I feel indifferent. I don't like the movie. I don't like the ending particularly. I don't like the script. But like I said, there's things about it. Like I said, I think this is a way better performance from a first-time director on a directing level than I would have expected to see. So like I said, it's not that like he, like, again, I think he deserves another shot. Financially, this has already made its budget back with like it not even 2 days. um so obviously there's more cost to that, but I'm certainly sure this is going to turn a profit for Neon and all of that. So and you know, like as a Kickstarter, I don't regret backing it. I like this, nothing, the fact that the result isn't great changes nothing about the fact that of why I did this in the first place. I like that he got a chance to do this and I wanted to support that, and that was really all there is to it. I do think in the next movie he makes, which I think is inevitable, he will be better because of this, and it's not like there's a glaringly amount of no talent there. There is something there. But you know, let's see what happens on the next one, and hopefully it's a lot better.
To add on the final remarks on it too, I would say that I agree with everything you said. I definitely think it's the best directing I've seen for like a first time director, I guess.
Mm.
Barring, like I was saying, the Rocky example of like YouTubers who got their big break and their first movie was so much tighter.
Well, and sorry, not to cut you off, but it's specifically related to that part, and I messed it over, is, like, we gotta remember too, contextualizing what those guys were making on YouTube versus what he was making on YouTube, right? Like, he's just setting his camera up and reviewing a movie, right? Like, those guys were making, like, very elaborate, like,
Short
action
films,
scenes
action
and,
set
like,
pieces.
yeah, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they were, like, whatever, I'm not gonna get, like, they were making movies. That was filmmaking. That was skills on display. And so I agree, like, it's not to it doesn't discount your point at all, but I just thought it was an important clarification. Like, I know Stuckman has made, like, shorts when he was younger. I haven't seen anything
Yeah.
really that I
What
remember as an
I'm
adult,
getting at
but
though
yeah, like,
is
it was better for a guy, like, if I was to do it, again, more related, like, this is the amount of video editing I have, is this podcast. Like, he blew me out of the water without question, you know, but yeah, I think that was just a point I wanted to mention when you brought it up earlier that I
no,
didn't.
it's a
So
valid
sorry
point,
to
but I
interrupt.
mean, like, let's like what I was getting at before your utter defense of Chris here was the Raka Raka guys. Yeah, they were making all these like you know, getting hit by a car set piece and, you know, all these like, you know, hand to hand fighting scenes. But their dialogue and their character writing that they wrote and directed was also pretty solid, especially compared to this, right? And when we talked
Oh
about it,
yeah,
it's like a guy who
their
has
scripts were
watched
better.
millions of movies. And his retrospectives on older movies, again, like I say, Ginger Snaps or something, the way he reviews older movies to shine a light on them, I think I actually still get a lot of value out of. But his contemporary reviews are what I had a bigger beef with. But the thing of first time director, YouTuber kind of thing. I do think like comparing it 1-to-1 to Raka Raka, with that exception of like, well, yeah, they were practicing filmmaking, not just
Mhm.
talking about movies. But it is frustrating, as we were saying. It's like as a guy who, and Adriana said, as a guy who has absorbed movies, to then put in some of those things. Like I joked about when I made my like little short film and when we were in Mexico at that wedding, and I was like, I gotta edit this piece of shit thing I shot. I hate it. Um, you know, I'm glad that didn't get picked up by Neon. But when we were talking about that exact thing, that whole summer when I was writing that, I was working on a Hallmark TV show. Hallmark, not known for their fantastic writing or character, and it was like I was reading the daily scripts, I was prepping all the props for that movie, and then when I came to writing my own, I was like, oh yeah, I should really reiterate that this is thousands-year-old land, the same way that in every Hallmark script for that TV show, The Way Home, they would, you know, they'd be like, Dell drinks a glass of water or a glass of wine and remembers her missing husband. Yes. Jay and Adam go to the bar and have a beer and talk about their missing dad. You know, like, you know what I mean? It was like so much repetition. And so almost in a weird way, maybe to what Adriana was saying, it's like maybe by absorbing so many movies and having all these influences, he forgot what didn't quite work. Cause yeah, there's a lot in this movie, like I said, just script wise, structure wise, doesn't fully work for me as somebody who also watches thousands of movies. And I
Yeah.
really want to see what he does next. I really hope he gets more directing. This felt like Mike Flanagan light, you know, like I really saw the influence there of the producing and the visual style. But yeah, I again, the ending when she gets chewed up by the dogs. I'm glad you mentioned that might have been added in, because I was also kind of like, oh, this is just a payoff, like the hellhounds will protect you line from 5 minutes ago, very
Mhm.
quickly pivoting, you know. And yeah, I'm glad I got to see it in theaters. I'm glad I finally got to see what one of my like longest subscribed YouTubers has done. But again, I do think it's very valid to not just be like, well, if anybody makes a movie, it's a miracle, because it is. We've said that at Fantasia, we've said that
Yeah.
on many
Mm-hmm.
reviews. But I do think like my big Raka Raka comparison was just like I super hope that this has been a great learning lesson, and I hope he kind of evolves and stops being as much of a YouTuber and more of an actual movie maker, because I don't find the value in his content there. And now with this movie being a bit of a letdown for me personally, now I'm kind of at this impasse where I'm like, do I just unsubscribe? Do I just wait for 2 years later when he puts something else out? Like I was so excited when he announced that he was making his Shelby Oaks found footage horror movie. And I think that 15 minutes is some of the best, because I feel like that was the real guerrilla part, the proof of
Yeah.
concept that he probably put out there to the world and try to sell it on. And yeah, again, again, we say this all the time, the E word of expectations. I didn't see a single trailer for this. I think I saw one genuine, pretty good piece of viral marketing where it talks about the paranormal paranoids being missing, and it shows the one scene where they're in the prison, I think, and you can
Mhm.
very quickly see there's like a demon guy slamming a door, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, like if that's like a chunk of the movie, I feel like I'm sold, you know. So yeah, again, I'm glad he got an opportunity. I'm glad it's been what it is. But yeah, no, I think you summarized it really well. And my last little bit, because I really have to say this, and I can't stress this enough, because we have seen a lot of movies in the last couple of weeks. Uh, this movie, I would say 10% of the runtime is just Camille Sullivan, the main actress, looking mortified and shocked and stressed and horrified in a medium close up, being like, "Oh my god!" And then we saw the movie "If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You," and that is an incredibly like tight movie that is focusing on a female lead who is mortified, shocked, and stressed out the whole time. And the wild difference of like quality, and again, obviously not apples to apples, but like the through line there of it being a lot of medium shots of an actress being concerned. That movie, I'd say, is 25% just her looking shocked at the camera. And with this one being what I saw after that movie, and that movie, which we'll talk about eventually, was so high on my list to see this movie and see kind of a very similar beat of it being like, okay, now look scared, look upset, and it's just like medium shot on the actress. You know, I think the again actors are great, but yeah, there's not much more I can say. I want to see more of Stuckman as a director, but I don't know if I honestly want to see more of him as a writer. I think if a movie came out and he's like, "Hey guys, I helped pen this movie for, I don't know, Neil Blomkamp," maybe I would go see it. But it's like I don't think it's a very streaming quality story, unfortunately.
Yeah, give him a
So
story by credit. Let him come up with ideas and give it script credit to somebody else. I think.
if that, I would say I want to see him get like a real property or something and direct it, because yeah, I don't know if I have any faith in like another Ohio set paranormal setting if it's not going to blow me away at this point. But anyways, love Chris Stuckman, and again, it's been a long journey following him and seeing this movie come, but kind of glad it's come and gone, much like everything in all movies. It'll be semi-irrelevant by the end of the month as Halloween is winding down.
Well,
And
I was going to say, speaking of people we love, Guillermo del Toro,
there you go.
Yes. Let's
Frankenstein.
Let's talk about Frankenstein.
We all saw it in IMAXs, right? Like, I
Yes.
know Adriana and I did. You did.
Well,
Okay.
was,
In
the
Toronto.
worst IMAX.
Yeah, the shitty one in Montreal. Yeah, but this is better than the VIP standard theaters or whatever the hell else.
I did see it in one of the better IMAXs. Again, we joke about this all the time where my buddy calls it Limax, because anything that's not 70 millimeter isn't true IMAX. But I saw it in a massive IMAX. It was probably like 200-300 people theater. That's where I saw Warfare with a packed audience. Massive, nice IMAX, and in my opinion, this is definitely an IMAX movie. I think it's a shame that it's going to be relegated to streaming around the time that this is coming out. But yeah, I really adored this movie for a lot of different reasons, and visually, it was such a breath of fresh air. Again, talking about other movies in Shelby Oaks, seeing kind of like very normal traditional movies, and then seeing something that is so full of visual life, like every conversation being a wide shot for the most part, just seeing the whole room, and a movie that was filmed here in Toronto with a bunch of my technician friends working on it. I was so proud. Every time they showed just drapes in a room, I was like, I know a guy that hung those drapes. I was like, this is such a great looking movie, and I know it was a prideful Toronto thing. Guillermo, the GDT, does a lot in Toronto.
I also feel pretty biased about this movie, but for different reasons. Yeah, I don't know. I find it hard to be unbiased about Guillermo del Toro because I just love the man so much, and I think more than almost any other artist, like let alone filmmaker, he just understands monsters in a way that speaks to me so deeply, and he loves them in a way that speaks to me so deeply. And like, this is not an invitation to psychoanalyze me, but I have
he really understands me. I'm a monster.
I just, yeah, and I think this is a flawed movie. I'll say that right out of the gate. I think it's a very flawed movie, but there's so much in here that I loved just very deeply. And Frankenstein is one of my favorite novels, like, period. I think it's like one of the most important books ever written.
I love that, and I just gotta say it because I read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in the 11th grade English
Oh yeah.
curriculum, and I was hyped for that. I my expectations for reading, as somebody who, as you can tell, probably hates reading, I was like, finally Frankenstein. And just like what felt like a never-ending prologue at the start of the novel, it felt more like a madman's journal entries than an engaging monster flick. So, as somebody who didn't like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I think this is probably the best, most bold, exciting take on the monster movie of Frankenstein. Because yeah, I did not love the novel as an 11th grade
Well,
buck.
interestingly enough, like I think of whatever Frankenstein adaptations I've seen, this is probably the closest to the novel that I've ever
Yeah.
seen. It diverges in certain ways for sure, which I'm sure some people probably take issue with, but
Was Frankenstein in the book as fuckable?
This is
Do
a
they
Screen Level Fair
present him as
podcast
fuckable?
where we
Like,
ask
that's
the
a
questions
genuine.
that people want
depends
to
on
know.
who you ask, actually.
Oh boy, okay, well there you go. We'll get into that, I
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
too.
Jacob
No,
Elordi
but
as
yeah.
Frankenstein was actually pretty good. Like I didn't see him in like I was expecting to see him and go oh, there's a hot British dude, and instead I was like, oh yeah, he is a monster though. I'm sure he's
Yeah.
sure
But
he's
yeah,
still Jacob
just to
Elordi, but
just
yeah.
to wrap up my high level thoughts, I guess. I think, yeah, the beautifully made, like visually stunning, very much like Guillermo is like doing his thing there, but a little bit maybe bloated and like, I don't know, kind of like, I understand the flaws, the issues that people have with this and the flaws that it has, but I still love it despite those. That's kind of my take on it.
Just like Frankenstein the monster himself, not a perfect creation, but one you could love if you
That's
understood
right.
humanity.
Absolutely.
Without before Shea dives in on this one, normally we give the hater the open mic when it's a 2v1, but to start off strong on the positives, because I feel like I was just so negative the last hour almost. I gotta get it good. But Shea last week on the Black Phone was like, oh, Brandon has a bad week and he goes to see a movie, takes it out on the movie. I rented a van from the TV show I was on, and I dented it. I was moving. I was stressed. I didn't even want to see Frankenstein because I was like, I'll wait for streaming. I'm so busy, but I got to see for the pod. Anyways, I smoked a rental van. I put the grapefruit-sized dent in a rented thing, and I was moving. I was tired. I had 4 hours sleep. Worst possible mental headspace to go into a movie with, given Shea's metrics of me being such a sensitive little baby. And I went to Frankenstein with all that going on, and I was like, God, this was the escapism I really needed. I felt like I could live in this fantastic world and watch these characters and understand the essence of humanity. And all again, the divorced dad themes really helped.
I was gonna say you liked it because there's a shitty dad in the movie, so my point from last week is still totally valid.
Yeah, we aired that if there's a shitty father figure or a shitty family, especially, I'm into it. And the whole time when Victor is like just such a bad dad to Frankenstein, and then it's his son confronting him, I loved it.
Too as well.
Yeah.
We already did on the Black Phone. Don't worry, it's a good bit on that.
Well, funny you guys mentioned
1,000
that.
people now know I have daddy.
You'll see now joining the call, we've added a therapist, and we're going to break this down for the two of you. No, yeah. No, I think that's definitely related because yes, Victor is a shitty father. Again, like I wanted to love this so badly. Same thing Adriana said. I love Guillermo del Toro. I've been in the camp where it's like, from watching his other movies, I'm like, just let this man make a Frankenstein movie, Jesus Christ, because clearly that's what he wants to do.
Give him A-list Universal monsters. Don't give him, like, The Shape of Water is beautiful, but like that alone, you're like, hey, give him everything. Make him do the Dark Universe. Don't give it to anybody else.
So I have to say, on a high level, yes, this didn't work for me really overall, really in any kind of regard, other than the visuals, the sets. But even then, in a particular way, like they were very cool and all of that. But honestly, and this might upset you guys, but they felt like Guillermo del Toro doing Wicked. In terms of like the visual sense of this movie really kind of bothered me in this kind of like
way.
The world, again, I say that as a positive. Like if Guillermo could make Wicked look better.
You haven't even seen Wicked.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer 7 trillion fucking times, which is the worst trailer I've ever seen in my life. But just from like a set
Wicked
deck, like it just has this like in Shape of Water, like it was, or even what the hell, Nightmare Alley. Like they had a feel that definitely has the Guillermo trademark, but they just feel, I don't know how to even explain it. Like it just felt more like fake. I could buy into those worlds a little more and things like that. And this one just felt too fake for me. It felt too artificial. And like, not to shit on the Netflix of it all, because I shit on Netflix all the time, but like it just felt like in that vein. Again, the Guillermo version of that, which is better, but it just had like I didn't get immersed in the world like I have been in every other movie that he has done. And I think that was maybe the biggest hurdle, is that if I couldn't get there, and then everything else kind of falls away. Like I agree, for example, on the Frankenstein, like Jacob Elordi performance wise, I
Mm-hmm.
thought was good. I struggled just immensely with it though. Like as like just the visual look of the character, like it just I didn't buy in. And so like I feel like so much of that part kind of I struggled with. The bloated pacing, there was chunks of this movie that just feel like okay, like, and I never we like was interested in Victor Frankenstein's character at all. Like I feel like performance wise I would say it was fine, but like I certainly, as a character on the page and in on the screen, like I never really cared, and then not in a way that like, oh, I loved him or I hated him or anything like that. Like I didn't
Yeah,
feel really
I
anything
will
about it.
say, as like, I like Oscar Isaac. I think he's great, but I do think he was like maybe the weakest part of this movie. Like
Okay.
I
maybe
Yeah.
not the
I would
weakest,
disagree.
but like I just think like the character is so broad, which I mean they all kind of are, and that's sort of the point, but his
What I really
performance, I
liked,
guess, was very broad and yeah.
yeah, what I really liked about Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, and again, this could be the divorced dad talking element here,
Of
but what I
course,
really liked
Brandon
about
liked
it,
it.
no, I liked it because he reminded me of like how we saw Napoleon in the Napoleon movie, where he's like a bit of like a sniveling, shady dude that is like so bent on his own like mommy issues, where he's like, you know, mom dies and he's just traumatized and he didn't have it anyways. But I and it didn't. I think to your points about pacing, definitely some scenes and some flashbacks to really highlight that like he's obsessed with death and his dad wasn't really a good dad. I think it's necessary for the story, but I did feel that maybe if there's one thing they could have just gotten through quicker, maybe. But I did like Oscar Isaac as our guy, especially when he is doing like heinous stuff, like as far as like ruining his brother's wedding, trying to cheat on him with his wife. Like he's a great sniveling man in this movie, and that endeared it to me. I liked seeing him be sniveling and conniving, and almost like I was trying to say, my hot take. I'm like, if nobody's seeing this, which I think people are, but if not many people are seeing it, to get the youth, the Gen Z, I would say he's basically just Victorian Tony Stark from the MCU, dude. He's trying to do way too much with way too much brain. It's going horribly wrong. And I guess to segue a little bit into the more spoilery territory, I would say, Shay, when you said it was a little too fantastical at elements, I would disagree, except for I did agree wholeheartedly when they do show the tower. I think the tower set and set piece is gorgeous and beautiful, etc. But when they do like the shot of it, because it's such an unrealistic building in general, but it fits the Frankenstein mythos well. Like I loved it. However, yeah, when they show the outside of the tower, I was definitely a little bit like, oh, this is starting to feel a little too movie like, when the rest of it was pretty grounded like that, like you know, Victorian Britain kind of like, you know, period piece. I also don't like period pieces that much, or British people. So like this movie did a lot of uphill legwork to make me like it. Um, so yeah, long story long, I do kind of agree. Like I could see that fantasticalness being a little bit take away in some elements. But I do think when it delivered on stuff and seeing the tower and seeing it go from those phases of dilapidated to laboratory to dilapidated again. And there's even a scene we talk about being too fantastical as a set dresser. My buddy who I saw this with agreed, and this was like the most distracting set dresser thing, when he does go to burn the tower down, and there are
Oh yeah.
old timey gas cans lining the stairs as if they were candles. Like there was just gas cans everywhere. I was like, the budget for those gas cans alone, we rent those from all these prop shops, but to rent that many cans and then distribute them through all, like I guarantee they're bicycling them, which is when you take set pieces from other sets and pull them into the next scene, just from scene to scene, because they maxed out. Like I don't think that's all the gas cans in Toronto
That's the
for that
Netflix
scene.
budget.
Yeah, that was
I
such a
guess.
flex. That was a set dresser flex. All those gas cans lining the corridors and the staircases. I was like, damn, they must have hit every prop house for that just to make it like very apparent he's blowing up his stuff.
Um,
But yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I should go back, I guess, to the fantastical thing and Shay, what you said about the it feeling artificial. To me, all of that kind of worked. Like, I loved how ungrounded it was. I loved everyone's like wearing red leather gloves and like red shawls and these like elaborate fucking coffins with like metal,
yes,
face masks and flower, like it was so gothic, like in
Okay.
the
Let
original sense of that word, of like everything is very over the top and melodramatic and um like taken to an extreme. It just on an aesthetic level, it really really worked for me. I was
I
like, even
totally
the
agree.
tower, like being on this cliff and it's like absurd. It's just like this building makes
it
no sense, but
It's not like that part I'm down for. It's just like that it all shines. Like there's no grit, there's no grime of the period. Like this is what I mean about the Netflix of it all, where it's like, oh, this is a super old building that looks like I made a super old building yesterday. And that's really where honestly, the first movie that I thought of comparatively, and it's not at all the same necessarily, but it's a relative similar time period, was those Robert Downey Jr.
Sherlock Holmes movies.
Sherlock Holmes movies, where they feel I can buy into this world because, like, again, you can have the same Guillermo design. Like, it's really not the design elements of it so much. It's just that how it looked like these were all made yesterday to put in this world today, like that there was no weathering, there was like all of that. So it's like I love the gothic, like it's almost like it's the right idea but the wrong execution. Like it's not that I didn't like any of those parts, it's just that like even the fucking like log cabin or whatever, like the family house that Frankenstein ends up in, feels shiny, it feels like clean, and it's like that's just this sort of like, I feel like this is a modern thing where it's like everything feels so clean, it feels so detailed because we know everything's in 4K now, so it has to have like a modern sheen and feel, I guess.
yeah,
Like I don't know, but that's more what I mean. It's like because again, Guillermo's got such a unique style and it fits in theory this perfectly, but in execution of that style, that was where I kind of got lost a little bit on it. And in relation to that, like in the same thing, like earlier this year, we had Wes Anderson discover Michael Cera, right? And that was like a pairing where everyone was like, oh my God, like, how has this not, like, he's found his muse. I was
Dude, you
going
crack me
into
up so
this
much.
very excited about Guillermo del Toro finding Mia Goth. And I
Yes.
was incredibly let down by that in this movie. I really did not. I wanted, like, it was fine. It wasn't that it was bad. It was fine, but I was like, because I didn't remember who was in this movie. I didn't remember that it was the Oscar Isaac one. I was in my brain, wasn't sure if this was the one where friggin' Christian Bale is Frank. Like, I didn't remember who was in this movie. So then when she shows up, I remember being like, oh shit, this is the pairing. And then it just was like, oh, like
No, dude,
she was
I
like a
was so
perfect
jazzed.
Guillermo muse. And I
Yeah.
didn't think like was
Uh,
near as weird and wily as Mia Goth can be, like in something like Infinity Pool and shit. Not like character wise, very different. I just mean like, as an energy, as an essence in the movie.
Mhm.
She just felt like she could have been like any other good actress. We could have pulled that off fine. There was nothing unique about her, I felt like, in
I
this.
really do want to say, like, I want to talk about casting because it is a pretty star-studded cast. But on the Mia Goth note, though, I thought she was great. Her introductory scene, verbally sparring with Victor Frankenstein about the nature of like death and life and
Well,
all that, super good. Also, super quick, my bit here is she is the manic pixie dream girl with the Guillermo del Toro treatment in Victorian London. So all those for me were just firing, completely firing. I was like, that is how I would sell the movie to a lot of dudes. It'd be like Mia Goth as Manic Pixie Dream Girl in a gothic Victorian setting. Sold. And
see
I super bought in.
that wasn't even her introductory scene because she played 2 roles, which I wasn't even sure
Oh, the
about. She
mother.
played the mother
She
too.
looks just like
She
the
was
mother.
in
I
a
thought
double
that,
role
yeah.
again, which I thought was like fun, but it was almost to the point where I was like, when she showed up, I was like, is that Mia Goth? Is that her? Is she playing the weird French mom with the fucking red
Yeah.
veil? Okay.
Which made sense because
Um,
he was so obsessed with his mom. That's why he's willing to
yeah.
ruin his brother's marriage, etc. But yeah, I don't know. I bought Mia Goth for sure. I'm surprised you had the same or the opposite reaction to her. And the dual role is cool though. I do agree. That is like
Yeah.
kind of a
I
cool thing
bought
to
her
actually.
too, but I do agree it wasn't like her most compelling or like energetic performance, let's say. But I don't know, I
She,
thought she was like one of the better parts of the movie. Like she worked, she fit in that world. Um yeah.
yeah. What about Christoph Waltz? Do you have any big issues with him, Shay? You hate
He
everybody
was
in this
great
movie?
for the random chunk that he was in, and then just like disappeared, and that was the end of that. And
I
plot
do want to
convenience, and okay, great, thank you.
I do want to point out because of like I as a shyster here, I do want to point out. Do you think because he's like you must resurrect me, Victor Frankenstein? I want to live forever. That's why I'm funding you. Do you think that they kind of lore dropped that if and we talked about the fuckability of Frankenstein? Do you think that if Frankenstein became a young slayer and was wheeling and dealing with his Jacob Elordi body, if he caught syphilis, if that would slowly cause his organs to shut down and his undyingness to wear off because he hinted that the guy's body was too far gone?
Only
Or do you think
syphilis
that
can
was
kill Frankenstein.
that's what I'm getting
I
at? Thank you for
gotta
tuning into the Screen Level
I
Fair
gotta
podcast.
interrupt and be like super pedantic here because you guys have been calling him Frankenstein, but
The
that's
monster of Frankenstein.
he's the
Right,
creature,
Frankenstein's
okay? He's not
monster.
Frankenstein. He's Frankenstein's creature.
So okay,
Pedantic
so
is
he is
right.
killable by syphilis, the monster
Yeah,
Victor
but yeah,
Frankenstein.
we all agree syphilis is the only way to kill the creature.
The creature.
Um,
The monster.
okay, well,
The creature.
I have to say the moment where I really feel like I fell off the movie, where I'm like, okay, this is not really coming together for me, was when we get the part 1 of like Victor's origin. And I think Adriana, I read afterwards that maybe this is related to the book, the accuracy of the book. But then when we get to the part where the monster shows up into the boat and shit, and he's like, "Well, he told you his story," and I'm like,
So
"Oh
now I
fuck
tell you
me."
mine.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Please don't say it. Please don't say it." And he goes, "So let me tell you mine." And I was like, "Oh no!" Like
Yeah.
that was where I think I fell. Like I was trying, I was holding on, and then that hit, and I just went, "Oh."
I was
And
like
I fell
fucking
off
cheering. I was
really
like,
hard.
yeah, let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
I
god, no,
was I
I
was
fell
hyped just like
completely
Adriana. I
off.
was like, yo, let's go. And then to be fair, to agree with Shea a little bit, his segment did make me start reassessing the pacing because I did love the Oscar Isaac segment and a lot of the build up and the explanation and the all the early stuff for me was working so well. And by the time it came to the solo act of Frankenstein learning words and interacting with the blind man and the child and the spirit of the forest, like all that stuff for me, although it was still good and fantastical and whimsical, the movie got smaller and slower, where before it was so grand and opulent. Now that they're in the cabin in the woods and he's taking like his winter arc, his villain arc of learning about society, I was starting to get a little bit bogged down because I did also kind of think, get back to the boat. I want to see him kick Victor off the boat and throw him into the ice water. I want to see the action, because after what felt like maybe it was almost like an hour of the movie is his story. that is when I agree with Shea. The pacing did drag a little bit because I was so bought in, unlike Shea, on the rest of the movie where I was like, yeah, I too was like, yo, let's go, let's hear the monster story, like
Yeah.
let's see
Well, I
the meat and
forgot they
potatoes
did
of the
the part
story.
1 at that part. Like the movie had like it's so much time had
Yeah,
elapsed that I forgot they were like part 1 or
I
whatever. And
think
then
in general
I was like,
the
oh,
pacing is not great. Like I think he really could have like shaved a good probably half hour off of this movie and it would have been a lot
the
tighter.
monster story specifically, I
But I
agree.
mean,
Yeah,
I do think that it's that when we switch to the monsters like story, it's a kind of welcome change of like tone and like you said, it's smaller, quieter, and I do think it's like very it's thematically like the heart
yeah,
of the
I
story.
agree.
Like you need to kind of have that. Um,
and hearts are a big deal in this movie. They show a lot of
yeah,
hearts.
but I do agree also that the like, you know, shoving ooey gooey body parts together and like stitching a human like all of that kind of gross like monster stuff is a lot more fun. And that
Yeah.
was like when the movie was firing on all, I was like eating it up. Just like, yes, this is what I wanted from Guillermo.
As a counter argument to what Chase said about the gloss of it all, I guess I would agree. Like the lab was super shiny, in that sense because it was like the best of the best technology of the time. And that I didn't notice it much in the cabin, but to be fair, I was a little bit checked out when I got to the cabin because we talk about this a lot, where it's like with a lot of reboots and remakes and retreading familiar ground. And again, we talk about superhero fatigue. Frankenstein, in a way, not a superhero. I'm not trying to clickbait anybody, but the fact of we know the Frankenstein mythos. We've known about Frankenstein like grade 11 English class through all the adaptations. Getting his origin story after having a little bit more of a unique and like very focused exploration of Victor, which is usually forgotten about, as you said. Like everyone, Frankenstein's monster is usually the set piece, and when he was on the back burner for a lot of the movie, um, that made it feel more original to me. And so when we finally got to do the origin story, superhero beginnings of the monster, that's when I found the pacing and I didn't necessarily clock it or care as much. And so even though I did like the movie a lot, I would say, yeah, I could see the pacing in there. And yeah, it's tough to tread familiar ground again, because
yeah.
even though the movie needs to show us that, cultural audiences know it
Yes,
already.
this is I think probably, and this is not it's like I to this moment I don't know if this is the fault of the movie or it's what you bring to it again. And I think it's at least I think partially on me, is that this is such a thing that's been done, redone, spun off, done in completely different stories and whatever, that all of this movie felt redundant, and I felt like I was watching Uncle Ben die for 2.5 hours. You know what I mean? Like it felt like,
Valid.
and again, it's not like I don't put that on the movie. It's adapting something. So when you and like I think we had said it actually right after the movie when we saw it, when it was like, oh, that was like a pretty faithful adaptation. I was like, oh, well then that might be part of my problem, is that it nothing of it was new. I was like, I felt like I was waiting for the moments where it's like, and then this is where we go, I am a human capable. Like
Yeah.
it's all of the themes. I'm just waiting for us to get there. And the problem with the movie is that that's all it's delivering, because that's what it is. It's a Frankenstein movie. And so I just kind of like, I'm not surprised. I'm not necessarily moved, because again, for all these other reasons that I'm struggling to plug my way in, but it just kind of like felt like I was watching, yeah, like Batman's parents dying and the pearls. Like I just like, I know this, I've seen this, and it's not the movie's fault for that at all,
No.
but it's, I can't separate that from how I
It's
experienced watching it.
it's hard to make a 200-year-old story feel
Exactly.
new, especially one that has been adapted since like
Beaten to
1920, like sorry, 1825 or whatever was the first stage adaptation of Frankenstein the novel. Like
yeah,
it's
there you
been
go.
being adapted for like 200 years. So
I've been trying to look up the last people to try and make Frankenstein fresh. What was it, that one movie? Would they basically
I
make him this I
Frankenstein or whatever the
Frankenstein,
fuck it was
and they make him
called.
like super powered because he's like, I'm a monster, nobody like they're trying to turn him into like Batman basically. And so I was going to think like the Shea Gaslight compilation here is like, oh, you don't want a fantastical world to feel fantastic? Oh, you found a 200-year-old property already been done before? But I do agree with you completely on those points.
Well, the example I thought of while we've been talking too is to give an example that's more concrete of what I'm trying to express here as far as the visual look of the movie. It's comparing the look of the Shire in Lord of the Rings to the Shire in The Hobbit. If you
I get you
watch
now.
those two things, like it
Yeah.
just has this shine, this clean, this whatever, as opposed to feeling like a real place, a fantastical real place, but it doesn't feel real in that way. And that's where I feel like kind of my disconnection really. And this is like a unique thing. I've never felt like I've had this problem with Guillermo's stuff before, but I did in this one. And I feel like that maybe is the single biggest hurdle, because at least if I can get on board with it, then I'm already there. But like I just feel like I'm watching this flashy, clean retelling of
Yeah.
a movie that I've seen a trillion times in either direct adaptations or completely original ideas that are just ripping off of
I
this themes.
I
Right?
think I get what you're saying with the cleanness, and I wondered where that's coming from. If it is just like, oh, this is the Netflixification of Guillermo or whatever. Because was was Nightmare Alley also like a Netflix production? I can't remember.
Netflix.
I
I don't think it
don't
was a
think
Netflix
so.
production, but it was also shot here in Toronto with all
Because I
my
really
same
liked
scenic
that
friends.
movie, and
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did
but
too. I
there
felt like it was.
I'm kind of with you in that, like, right when the movie started, was a little worried. I think it was right around when the CGI dogs are like, in when they're on the ice, and
Yeah.
there
The
was like something with
CGI
like,
dream sequence I also found really
oh
like
yeah, the
too
weird like
ethereal.
angel, like
The
yeah.
angel
Oh,
robe
the
fire
angel looks
thing,
so
those
fucking
those
bad every
those
time.
bits, like, I was like a little, I got worried. I was like, oh no, oh, my stomach like dropped a little, like, oh, Guillermo, no, like, did you
yeah,
move away
those
from your
scenes.
roots here? But then we got the like body parts and all of that, like visceral, like practical effect stuff, and I loved that, and I just wish it was more, I guess,
Yeah.
consistent across the board. And yeah, so I do hear what you're saying, even though I still, on the whole, aesthetically, I think that was the strongest part of the movie, was the visuals, the
The
cinematography,
visuals.
the production and set design and costumes. But
And the performances too. I would say, I know those are subjective to a lot of people, but there wasn't a bad performance in the movie. But maybe again, like to Shea's credit, finding some of these characters not as enjoyable because it is a faithful adaptation to a very old novel that's been done 100 times in theater, stage plays, movies. I think that there's probably streaming show versions of this. Like totally get it. I would
To push
say,
back on the performance bit, I would actually say I think only Jacob Elordi is the one that delivers a performance that stands out or is otherwise noteworthy. I think everybody else is like serviceable. It's not that they're bad, they're serviceable. But you could have swapped practically anybody out, maybe except Christoph, just because Christoph is so Christoph that I can't see anybody but Christoph being Christoph. But
yeah,
like otherwise, like I felt like that could have been done. And like I said, like I liked the performance and I was surprised at how much I liked it, given how much I was struggling with just like every time he popped up, I was like, oh my God,
I
like it made me giggle. But
there was a lot of like really good lines in this movie. Like I think I texted you a few when I got out when he's just like Frankenstein's having that conversation. He's just like if I am your monster now, I will be, if you are my maker now I will be your monster and I will ruin your life. And like there was all these like lines that I thought were pretty good, but because this is my only opportunity to get this out here, I'm sure Guillermo del Toro will do other movies. A line from a GDT movie I will never forget was Michael Shannon in The Shape of Water, when he goes to the bathroom while the cleaning lady's in there and he washes his hands before he goes to the urinal. And I think about this every day of my life, basically, because he's like, oh, yeah. The whole point of the scene, the line delivery is like, there's an unclean world so I wash myself before I touch myself versus after, because I am not the unclean thing. And again, talking about like the monster and the discrimination and stuff like that, I think like there wasn't a character as good as Michael Shannon in that movie. In this movie, ignoring again like the creature performances of like Jacob Elordi and the fish guy. Yeah, I very solid, but I don't think it'll be as staying power as relevant as Shape of Water. In my mind. But again, I think like from all the parts I've been gassing about sets and stuff and being another, again, Shape of Water, big one for us. That's won us an Oscar, I believe, in the art department side of the world. So all the standards are there. But yeah, I don't think it will reach the same heights or like staying power, because again, it will be relegated to streaming. And if it didn't work for Shea, I'm sure it doesn't work for a lot of people. But I think for some nerds like Adriana and I, that would just absolutely adored the universe we lived in for that 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It was a longer movie. It did not feel that long to me.
It definitely felt that long.
I think I've been thinking about this, and it goes back to what I said earlier about like Frankenstein's character being almost like too broad, and it's as much as I love the over the top gothicness of it in some senses, I think where it started to falter is it takes too much of that approach thematically, like, and we kind of joked about this after we got out of our screening, like it's heavy-handed with the themes here.
Oh
And
yeah.
like the worst, I think, line of the movie to me is when the brother is dying and he's like, "No, Victor, you're the monster." And
You're the monster.
I was like, why did we have to like spell out the themes? And even to that point, I think one of the things that where it diverges from the book in a way that I thought was like not very good is that, and this goes back to what I was saying about Oscar Isaac's performance and character, he's so heinous and unlikable, and yeah, he makes this creature and then immediately chains him up and is like such an asshole. And I was like, there's no nuance here. In the book, he rejects the monster, he rejects his creation because he's like afraid of what he's done, but it's not like the monstrosity and the cruelness is a lot more subtle, and it's a lot more interesting a dynamic, I thought. And then for that to at the end for them to just be like, "I love you, father," and kind of reconcile out of nowhere, it was way
Bingo.
too broad strokes in that sense, like thematically. Yeah, so that's where
I'm
it
so
really
glad you
didn't
said that.
work
Yeah,
for me.
I think for the heavy-handedness of it all, because I was trying to tie it back to this somehow, but the ending I didn't love because of it being so on the nose. The way the ending concludes for me, again, the guy that loves the broken family angle of this, or like the creator rejecting the created, the God humanity stuff. It was all heavy-handed, but when the angle of forgiveness came in at the end, that was when I was a little bit more like, ugh, all that for that. Like I really wanted there to be a more bummer ending, where
Yeah.
he kills him and then now lives with his guilt and struggle or whatever. But instead, it's just like, no, because I'm human, I also learned forgiveness, not because of you. And I'm like, damn, I hate an abuse story that ties a bow on things. Like I just wish it was still a little bit muddier. Like if Victor himself wasn't struggling with the heinous things he's done, because he's just a little bit more one note, as you were saying, and just like speed running, getting the creature, being like, never mind, I'm going to lock him up, fuck him, I hate him. If they were going to do that angle, it should have been that continued of like the monster being like, I'll now repay the kindness you've shown me. But instead it's like, I've learned to be a better human. And I'm like, damn it. Like I really wanted him to, smash
And
his head in.
give you guys a
Yeah.
little lift to push you out of the ice.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie where a man kicks a boat down the Arctic ice ring at the end. But also, I got to say too, I think some of the gore in this was fun. I liked that he almost unaware of his own strength was ripping off he skins a wolf. He grabs a wolf by his neck collar, skins it alive. He breaks jaws and heads. So I was really hoping for the Victor conclusion to be something on that note where it's like very subtle and quiet, and he just fucking crushes his head between his pinky finger. I don't know. I wanted a more grim ending.
I was once again mixed on that, because I thought the gore parts, particularly as it related to the creation of the creature was interesting. Like there was one scene, I don't remember specifically what it was, that really stood out though to me as the most awesome in terms of the practical visuals and stuff. It was a gore in the sense that like it was extreme thing, like you said, like ripping the skins on the jaws, all that,
Skinning
but
people
it
alive.
felt so fake. It felt so digital, and I was like, I just glazed over it, and it doesn't make like it's not that it glazed, like it was. So I was like, oh, and then I went, oh, like it's a shocking thing that executed digitally becomes less impactful. And in the same movie where it's like, I know you guys had the budget to go down a route of practicality. I know that's your instinct in Guillermo. And I saw it earlier when it was very visceral, like body parts, and you're shoving them in and they looked so great and so real. And then to those moments feel so artificial. Like there was that initial shock that had happened. And then as like it
Yeah.
progressed out, I was like,
I
oh,
will
okay,
say
my
it
eyes kind of
wasn't
rolled.
the worst offender on that front that I've seen. Like this wasn't, the Toxic
Oh no,
Avenger
no, no,
levels
no.
of like
No.
CGI gore, but
And
yeah,
No,
also
no,
it
no.
is
too,
a
when
bit disappointing, especially when you have examples of the opposite in the same
in the
movie.
Yeah.
same movie.
Yeah.
In that exact vein too, I would say, because they do go through great lengths to show the practical stuff when they are doing it, but it is like those beats are very intentional. The beats where he skins the wolf, it is a much more blatant. You miss it. Like he's just ferally trying to protect somebody who's being attacked, and to do that practical in the same vein would be like, let's slow down the moment of him panicking and getting in there. He's not intentionally trying to be hardcore and rip this wolf's skin off. He literally is just like almost like a football like linebacker, just like nope, and he like dekes him, grabbing his fur, ripping it off. It is not necessarily like like, oh, look how edgy and cool. There's a lot of moments where he's just like this strong creature monster thing, and I mean, when he hits a guy, he doesn't realize it's like blowing his lower jaw off because he's so strong. So I think in like a story wise, I do think it was okay in that sense to make those kind of quick and less dialed in. But I do recognize, like, yeah, because we just talked a movie about bad CGI dogs. I can I get it, but I didn't need it for me personally because it did highlight his gross strength and his panic and concern that it wasn't, like a crazy epic thing where he's ripping all this stuff off and being all gory. It was just a quick, get off him, throws the wolf, and he brutalizes this wolf or whatever. But I get it. I totally get it. But I do think thematically it worked for me. And that's the beautiful part about movies is they affect everybody differently. So
Oh, when it's not the monkey, it's that movies affect everybody. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
hey,
No, I wanted to bring up
we
one
were at 2
question. I
episodes
guess
of
Where's
bringing
our
up the monkey.
monkey
if you
counter? Just
if
drop
you
back to
bit
0.
if you had read it, I don't remember reading it in high school or anything, but the thing I guess for me on the narrative level of the movie that I felt also kind of like I was excited to see the movie. Like I was like Guillermo del Toro, Frankenstein. I was excited conceptually for that, but then why didn't it work? And one of the things I was thinking about, and I don't know if this is like more accurate to the book and it's more of me posing a question to you guys, is that I really felt like this didn't grapple with the things about the Frankenstein mythos that I always found the most interesting, which was the moral complexities, the philosophical ones of like, what is it life? What is it to be human? And like all these things. And this movie, like, it definitely mentions those in varying degrees of intentionality, but I felt like the main focus of this movie was like, and to I think its detriment, and maybe that's why Brandon liked it so much, was it was like daddy issues the movie. Like you were just going off of like it's really about kind of that core relationship. Those themes that I'm interested in are kind of somewhat related to it, but like it really felt like it was a relationship focused thing, which to me feels just wildly less interesting than the other questions that the Frankenstein thing kind of inspires for me as a viewer anyway. And I didn't know if that was more like, oh, that's how the book was or something, but
No,
that was maybe where I also felt like my interest kind of disconnected from what
I
this
think
movie was putting
you're
forward.
kind of on the money with that. Like to me the reason the book is so great is that it is so thematically rich. It's dealing with all of these like
Right.
really really interesting deep moral philosophical questions, and this movie, I think, is only dealing with like a sliver of that. It's like a very
Yeah.
simplistic not simplistic, maybe that's the wrong word, but like it's a very streamlined, like more
Streamlined for sure.
narrow um
And what I think is the
version.
more uninteresting one
Yeah.
of the, if you only can focus on one, that was to me the less interesting one to focus on for
Now,
sure.
to be fair, because I do want to wrap up shortly, but I would say, did you guys really want another Prometheus out of this? Like, did you really want to go in with? Because I feel like Prometheus does the same themes of Frankenstein, where it is creating the xenomorph, and it's like, and the android stuff, and all the alien properties, the android stuff, the creation of man, maybe from the space gods, maybe from, you know what I mean? I feel like I've been down an alien rabbit hole, the TV series recently, and I don't know if I wanted to go see something that had that whole like man meeting his maker and understanding the finality of human life and creating life and
I
the,
mean,
Well,
the
but
moral
before I
implications.
the
want to,
subtitle of the book is Frankenstein or a modern Prometheus. It is like such a
it's
central component of the
well,
book.
That was so unintentional, big brain of me.
well, well, this is why I wanted to kind of kick it more to you, Adriana, because I feel like you're more of the authority to speak on it. But for me, it's like I wasn't looking for something new here. I was looking, and I don't even want to say that, like I was hopeful for the definitive take on this. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I was after. Like I wanted to be like, this is the version of Frankenstein that I liked the most. I didn't want it to be new or reinvent the wheel or do something crazy with it. Like I wanted it, I was just hoping that was kind of the outcome that I was after. Like, oh, like just a really great take on the story. Like I, it's Frankenstein. Like, there's no fucking way you can do this that's either fresh or like we can.
Yeah.
So, like, let's make Guillermo, let the guy who clearly has a lot of love for that story, like, give him the wheel, like, give him the ship. And I felt like, so I didn't care, like, if it was the same treading that ground, but in his way and a little more that flavor and that style and like his take on it, then like I would have probably been more down for that than what we ended up getting.
I wonder if that's like uh maybe part of it is like everyone is like, oh yeah, Guillermo is like was born to adapt Frankenstein, to make the definitive adaptation, and there was almost, and it was like this really long big passion project for him that
Yeah.
almost like maybe got in the way of the pressure or the expectations or whatever. Like, I don't know, that's purely speculation, but it almost is like, yeah, it's hard not to have some kind of expectation when you hear like, oh, Guillermo del Toro is adapting Frankenstein, and he himself is like, yeah, this is what I've been waiting my whole career to do. It's like,
Yeah.
and then that's the result. It's like, I kind of like wanted like a little bit more, or yeah, as much as I love the movie, I just kind of agree with you that
Well,
it
and just before I unleash Brandon on this one too, I think this is such a, and you guys haven't seen this movie, so we won't like get into the details, but I felt like, okay, so they picked a less interesting focus, like sure, but then I felt like they didn't, like I didn't care about it at all, really. Like you guys said at the end, how this relationship, like it all kind of comes together in a way that feels very like simple and basic, and like they're really it's not that you can't do that same theme, it's a basic theme, but you can do that in a way that I found really engaging. And I just saw Springsteen this weekend, which I had bottom barrel expectations for,
Yeah,
and
Dewey Cox
I
walk hard.
I got, well, no, it's not at all, frankly, and I got emotional at the end of that movie, and it deals with this sort of, part of it is this daddy issue themed of like their relationship and the way that that movie wraps that up. I'm being very vague because I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it, including the two of you. But like it was so moving and impactful to me. And so it's not that that's a new territory in the same vein of like biopics or anything else. It's not that it's a new theme, but you can do it effectively. And this movie for me just also didn't do it effectively, which is what I think maybe more than anything else too, ultimately is what surprised me the most, because like I thought Guillermo could cut to the core and really do something more compelling there, I guess. Because I just never felt that. And so like to say that I felt that in the fucking Bruce Springsteen movie as a more effective, again, not the same themes one to one, but like in terms of the father-son relationship and all of that, like again, that's where I wouldn't have bet money that that would have been the way I felt after
Real
Frankenstein.
quick tangent. Was the Bruce Springsteen movie better than the Timmy Chalamet Bob Dylan movie, or worse?
I think better, in my
Oh,
opinion.
interesting.
Again, I won't go into any details. I think the Bob Dylan one was a little more Dewey Cox. Like there was moments that shine through of like, oh, of course we have to have this. And the Bruce Springsteen one, I thought we started there. So again, not a spoiler. It opens in a black and white of Bruce Springsteen as a kid. I'm like, oh, fuck's sakes. Is the first third of this movie going to be a black and white when he was a kid shit? And it really wasn't. It was just kind of a contextual flashback. And they do flashback a couple times, but it really was, it chronicles effectively the making of Nebraska, like a single album. And so, and it was very internal. Like it wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, and then he goes on the drug spiral, and like it dodged all of those kinds of things you would expect for the most part. And again, could have been partly my expectations, but I couldn't, it ended and me and Kelsey both looked at each other and were like, I fucking think I really loved that. Like I was surprised by how much I enjoyed that. So yeah, I think it actually avoids a lot of those pratfalls, and both great lead performances. But I think as a movie, I just was more impacted by this one, which
Cool.
is also personal. So I could,
Yeah.
your mileage may vary, but yeah,
Speaking
I
of
definitely think
impact,
it's a recommendation.
I was gonna say, speaking of impact, I bet some people ruined your movie experiences this week and impacted you negatively.
Brandon with the most unnatural transition to a closer we've ever gotten. But yes,
If you
we're
stop
at
calling
that
attention to
time.
it, they would get more natural, I promise.
Every time.
No,
Every time.
I think anyone listening just went like, "Wow, that was a wildly honest." So I think they
it
just
would be more
appreciate that we
natural to just
acknowledge
be
it.
like, all right, let's wrap up here. Let's, let's just, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, in all of this, when you do go to the movies, guys, don't put your phone screen up in the cup holder and let it constantly blow up and blink and turn on, and just cover it every once in a while to make people think you're doing your good job. Keep your goddamn phone in your purse, bag, pocket, jacket. Don't put it out in the open. Thanks,
Even
guys.
better, turn the fucking phone off.
Yeah,
That's crazy. I've
amen to
never
that.
thought of that. I was gonna put a blanket over my head and like doom scroll while isolating myself, because I had a girl do that in Frankenstein last week, and she walked out of the theater with a letterbox tote bag, and I'm like, fake fan.
If
Anyways,
we ever communally buy a theater, for the record, where every time you go into a movie in the theater that I fantasy own someday, you have to put your phone in one of those bags that they like
the comedy
seal.
show
Yeah,
sealed
like,
bag.
Yeah, and you
Comedy
can't bust it open.
Mothership.
Yeah.
Can't get your
That's
phone.
that's a mandatory part. Like, you know what? Sorry,
Let
that's the
us know
way it
down in the
has to
comments
go.
if you think that'd be a great idea to be implied in all movie theaters.
And we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.